At the end of Mass today, as we celebrate this great solemnity of Corpus Christi, the most holy body and blood of Christ, we'll be having a Eucharistic procession, and I think right now is probably as good a time as any to give some practical instructions for that procession. After communion, Jesus, our Lord, will be placed in the monstrance on the altar, and then immediately following the prayer after communion, the servers will come out and I'll incense the Blessed Sacrament, put on a humeral veil, and then we'll begin the procession. The procession, the servers, followed by me with the Eucharist, will process straight out the back doors of the church, and you're welcome to fall into the procession after us. We'll make one lap around the church building and then come back in to the church for benediction. It's possible that the Lord will desire that it's raining at the time of our procession. If that's the case, then we'll do a much simplified procession inside the church, and you'll be asked to remain in your seats for that. Perhaps a question arises in your mind: why are we doing this procession? What is the purpose? What's the point of this, I guess, kind of act of devotion? And it seems to me that the purpose of a Eucharistic procession is twofold. First, a Eucharistic procession is a wonderful way and a beautiful way that we, who encounter the Lord here in the Eucharist, who encounter the Lord inside this building, it's a beautiful way that we can take that joy and that relationship, that intimacy that we share with the Lord in here, and to take it outside, right? To take it out into the world to share with our neighbors, some of whom may not be Catholic, some of whom may not know Jesus and know the love that he has for us. It's a way for us to show to them and to be a witness of the power of the Eucharist and the glory and the joy that we experience in encountering him here. And the other reason I think is very closely connected to that first purpose. Right? Just as in the Eucharistic procession, we are taking our Lord out to other people and sharing him with them, we're also reminded by that liturgical act of taking Jesus outside the church, taking Jesus out into our community, out into our neighborhood, we're reminded of our mission as Christians, our mission as Catholics. We are called by Christ to share with others what we receive in here. At the very end of Mass, the last thing that you hear, although with the Eucharistic procession you won't hear it today, but normally at the end of Mass, the very last thing you hear from the priest or from the deacon is "Go in peace," or something like that, right? Go in peace, glorifying the Lord by your life. Go forth, the Mass is ended. Go and announce the gospel of the Lord. Right? At the very end of Mass, we are exhorted that what we receive here is not to remain here. What we receive here is meant to go out into the world, to be shared with our brothers and sisters, to be shared with those that we encounter every single day, to be shared with all of those who may or may not share our faith and our belief. Regardless of whether they share that belief or not, that doesn't change the fact that we are called to share that faith with them. We are called to preach the gospel. And what we receive in this intimate moment here in the Eucharist, we're called to be transformed by that. We're called to allow the Lord to come into our lives, to come into our hearts, and to transform them, to make them like his. And then, just as he went out into the world to bring back those who were lost, to bring them salvation, to reconcile them with the Lord, so we, having come here and been reconciled with the Lord and received him in this sacrament, are called to go out into the world, just like Jesus did, to bring people back to the Lord, to bring people back to that relationship that has been broken by sin. And so we ask the Lord today on this great feast of his body and blood that when we receive him in the Eucharist, we would allow him to transform us, that we would be open to the workings of grace in our lives, that we can be more and more conformed to the heart of Christ by our reception of his body and blood. And that having been transformed by him, we can go out into the world and fulfill the mission that he gives us, and so become the saints he calls us to be.